Good evening. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand. Available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and of course, Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, FayWhat, filling in for Mr. Al Ferguson. This evening, we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio models of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ plus community.
We're part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader community.
Yes, so let's begin by welcoming anchor Todd Delmay. Todd is a husband and a dad, a businessman and an entrepreneur, and an activist for civil rights. Todd and his husband were one of 6 plaintiff couples that sued for the right to marry in Florida, and were the first to marry when the judge lifted her stay in 2015. Besides 25 years in the travel and hospitality industry, Todd is also president of the Hollywood LGBTQ plus Council, board chair of Pride Lines, and serves on Hollywood's Sustainability Advisory Committee. When do you have time to just look that good, Todd? Good evening, Todd. How are you, honey?
I'm good, thank you.
What else is going on in your world? You've got so much going on.
You know, it's been nonstop. It's been one of those years.
It's been one of those decades, kind of.
Well, let's welcome anchor John Hayden, a journalist for 27 years. He now works for several outlets, including South Florida Gay News as a reporter and community editor, covering politics, entertainment, and local events directly impacting the LGBTQ plus community. John's interviewed everyone from presidents to Oscar winners and been on more red carpets than he can count. Also, he's gotten his ballot by mail, filled it out, and returned it. What's your excuse? Welcome, John.
Thank you so much. Yeah, vote, bitch.
That's it. Hashtag vote bitch.
Just like that. All right, let's welcome anchor David Hopkins. David is an officer for the Lambda Men's Brotherhood, a local charity group that raises funds within the leather community. Over the past 16 years, they have raised more than $250,000 for South Florida LGBTQ plus community. Now, they are raising funds for the Lambda History Series, a free LGBTQ plus history curriculum for parents, educators, and students. So incredibly important. Thank you for doing that, and welcome, David.
And thank you. And you can help support us on November 25th as the 17th annual Leather Mask Ball happens at the Crystal Ballroom at the Manor. So stay tuned. Next, let's welcome Franchesca D'Amore. Her vision is to extend education and support on behalf of the homeless, the arts, and the LGBTQ plus community. Currently a proud board member of Safe Schools South Florida and a former board member of the Hollywood LGBTQ plus Council, she's also the entertainment consultant for My Hollywood Pride 2023. A quote from her: If I can inspire even one person to boldly live their truth, my job is done, end quote. Good evening, Franchesca.
Good evening. Thank you for that. I'm excited to be here with all of you.
Welcome back. We're so happy to have you, Miss Franchesca.
I'm so happy to be here.
All those accolades, and you also make a mean bolognese.
Oh, I'm glad you love it. I don't make it for just anyone.
Thank you.
So.
I did not earn my belly without Italian food.
My mom taught me well. She sure did. So upcoming for Safe Schools South Florida, we have an event upcoming November 5th of this year at ArtServe Kaleidoscope. It's our annual fundraiser, so be there. Go to safeschoolsouthflorida.org to get your tickets. It's going to be fabulous.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to be a great night. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Wednesday, October 19th, 2022.
So let's begin by queering up trans rights. In the time of Don't Say Gay, International Pronoun Day celebrates LGBTQ plus identities. The third Wednesday of October is celebrated as International Pronouns Day. This year it falls on October 19th. The day seeks to make respecting, sharing, and educating people about personal pronouns commonplace. A person's pronouns are the third person singular pronouns they would like others to use. Personal pronouns are used to convey a person's gender identity and don't necessarily align with the sex a person was assigned at birth. The idea behind celebrating this day is to help people understand that referring to people by the pronouns they determine for themselves is basic to human dignity. Being referred to by the wrong pronouns particularly affects transgender and gender nonconforming people. This day matters even more in the present circumstance, where Republicans and conservatives are leaving no stone unturned to attack the LGBTQ plus community and its allies. Conservative politicians in the country are pushing back harder against LGBTQ plus identities after the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade and increasing anti-gay rhetoric. There is a growing demand to roll back LGBTQ plus protections among Republican elected officials and candidates. Some schools and universities across the country are supporting anti-gay agendas, erasing students of LGBTQ plus identity and blocking their resources. Celebrating International Pronouns Day against such a backdrop will help the LGBTQ plus community stand stronger against backlash. What an important day. You know, we celebrate really dumb things in this country, right? But like this, International Pronouns Day is one of the most important. You know, I had the pleasure of hanging out with some of my nephews over the weekend in Jersey, and one of them is non-binary, and I love them to pieces. And one of the things that they were super upset about was the fact that their teacher continues to use the wrong pronoun when addressing them. You know, and it's something very small, and the teacher doesn't seem to see it as so important. It's probably one of the most important things that an ally can do is to refer to you by your proper pronouns. And you know, I had an ally once ask me, what else could I do to help the community? I said, you know what, your signature at the end of your emails, put your pronouns on there. Let other people know that you know what the LGBTQ plus community goes to on a daily basis with our pronoun issue. What do you folks think?
Well, I never understand why it's such a big deal. We get embarrassed when we call somebody by the wrong name, like their actual, their name. But why is pronouns so much harder? Why is it such a bigger leap when somebody says what their pronouns are to just simply respect that by calling them the pronouns that they choose?
Yeah. I do a lot of work in the leather fetish community, volunteer work, and I'm a member of that community. And we have a lot of gender nonconforming, transgender, or non-binary individuals. And it just comes commonplace. Hi, my name's Daddy David. I use he, him pronouns. And that's just an easy introduction. Doesn't take anything extra. It's only awkward if you make it awkward, but it means so much to the people that means something too. So just that one little step we can use, to help other people feel included and accept it for who they are is so important.
I agree. I think it's super important, and I think it shows how attached the world is to gender binaries. And I think that's why a lot of people need more education to understand there's not just male and female, there's a lot in between. So I think this is a really great day to celebrate that.
You know something, it's up to us to educate everybody, Franchesca. You know, I mean, people make mistakes all the time, and then some folks in our community get mad. Oh, you should know. No, correct the person. Take a moment. Trust me, that person feels bad. Some people will feel bad for, giving you the wrong pronoun, and they'll correct themselves and continue with their day. And you just taught somebody what to do in that kind of situation, right?
And to your point, when you talking about putting it at the end of your emails, if we can get everybody to do it, then it doesn't stand out.
Right. I was just recently at an event where there may be 10 or 12 people. It was not an LGBTQ plus space, and somebody in their introduction mentioned their pronouns. And what it communicated to me immediately was that person gets it. I am in a safe space, even though nobody else did it. Like, you just kind of understood where that person was coming from. It was great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Florida's DeSantis seeks to squeeze out Democrats with illegal gerrymandering. Well, after pushing a congressional redistricting plan to the legislature this spring, Governor Ron DeSantis' administration is fighting to prevent the release of documents to plaintiffs in a lawsuit challenging the plan. In the recent filing, attorneys for the plaintiffs disputed the arguments about legislative and executive privilege and pointed to the intricately involved role that the governor's office played in creating the redistricting plan, which is expected to add as many as 4 Republicans to the state's congressional delegation. The plaintiffs, including groups such as the League of Women Voters and individual voters, allege that the redistricting plan violates a Fair Districts Amendment that applies to congressional districts. DeSantis contended that the redistricting plan would prevent racial gerrymandering, but opponents argued it would diminish the chances of electing black candidates by making changes, such as overhauling a North Florida district that in recent years elected Al Lawson, a black Democrat. State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith, a Democrat from Orlando, said that letting DeSantis draw his congressional map signifies that the legislature has totally surrendered its authority as a separate and equal branch of government. Like many other lawmakers, his district has changed with the new map. His old district that covered East Orlando, District 49, included a large minority population and voted largely Democrat. His new District 37 now contains a majority white population and encompasses parts of Seminole County, an area with a larger Republican population. As an openly gay lawmaker who has vocally opposed many of Governor DeSantis' initiatives, this is seen by many as an attempt to squeeze Rep. Smith out of office. I don't think we fully understand just how important Rep. Smith has been for our community. I'm wearing my Team Carlos t-shirt. We have felt that it is so important to support Carlos in this effort to make sure that he wins this. My family, actually, we went up a few weekends ago to knock doors in Orlando. This is that important. His voice has always been vocal, outspoken. He's not afraid of anyone. And he's often the one who, when a bill gets filed, at the 11th hour at midnight, he's the one who reads it. We remember when Don't Say Gay was filed this year, there was a point at which at midnight they filed an amendment to it that would have required teachers and schools to out children to their parents. Right. He was the one who saw that. He was the one who rallied the community. And by the next morning, as soon as session was in, the full weight and force of the LGBTQ plus movement was behind him, and they removed the amendment. Again, we cannot understate just how important he is to the legislature.
Well, him and several others, they have their constituents in their local district, but he works across the state. He
does.
Yeah. I'm actually sitting down today as a member of production because Representative Smith was supposed to be here, and unfortunately couldn't make it. So I can't represent him, but the fact that he was willing to drive 3.5 hours, or skip out on things to come here to represent his point of view on a news show in South Florida is amazing. He still has fundraisers and outreach in town. He's always back and forth and all over the state standing up for our community. And this, I think, is because he's attacked DeSantis so much, a direct attempt to get him out of office, as well as several other candidates.
He needs to be cloned in some kind of way. John, I want to hear what you have to say. This redistricting, okay? Can DeSantis get away with it? Will he get away with it?
Probably.
Wow.
I mean,
You didn't even hesitate.
Yes. No,
look. Take a moment and think about it, make me feel better.
Okay, well, yes, he's going to get away with it. Because, we've got a state pact. I mean, because the amendment that you're referring to in the story is a state amendment. It's not a federal law. And we've had Republican governors for 20 years. So I'm sure that they're going to interpret this in a very friendly way for the administration. And that is really too bad, because the whole idea was to make it nonpartisan. If 48% of the votes, I'm just tossing out numbers, 48% of the vote is Republican or Democrat, but we only have 35% of the seats. That's a key sign that we have been gerrymandered literally out of existence.
And they base the districts on the census results that happen on the decade. So the next redistricting won't happen until 2032, which means a possible decade of complete Republican control of the Florida House.
Wow.
They are squeezing all the Dems out.
Well, they have to, because they know the way trends are going. And if it was fair, if it was a 51-49, either way, it would seriously shift the balance of power.
All right, John?
All right, well, pardon me, we will move on and queer up South Florida gay news. Inclusivity, where you least expect it. You're welcome, as in you are welcome here. In this week's SFGN, online and on stands tomorrow, I have 3 stories of unexpected inclusivity. First, the Haunt at Treetop Park in Davie is having a haunted Pride Night this Friday. Second, I attended Sunday's Dolphins game, where they had an LGBTQ plus tailgate party, day out with the Dolphins. Third is the new and extremely inclusive Visit Lauderdale marketing campaign, Everyone Under the Sun. Now, none of these are earth-shattering, but they are each important and impactful. When you think of LGBTQ+, Halloween haunts, manly football, and the world of advertising don't immediately come to mind, but more and more, they do. And in a dark time, when our community is under attack at the state and local levels, these events serve as bright lights. Our allies aren't passively supporting us, they're standing up for us, loud and proud. Stacy Ritter, the brilliant mind behind Everyone Under the Sun campaign, told me, quote, "We don't care how you identify, what gender, what pronoun you use, if you use a pronoun at all. We don't care if you're gay or straight. We just want you to enjoy yourself. We're going to continue to show that Fort Lauderdale is an LGBTQ+ destination worldwide," end quote. And you can read much more about these events in this week's SFGN, online now and on stands tomorrow. And I got to tell you, I've been to 2 of those 3 events. I was at the marketing Visit Lauderdale rollout, which was amazing. And getting to talk with her, she was so emotional. And I know we've already talked about it on the show, but she was just so driven. Pride Night this Friday, I can't wait to go to because I love haunted things. And the fact that they're doing that is really encouraging.
That's the one that surprised me, to be completely honest. Was
really?
Yes,
Yeah.
was the haunt at Treetop.
In Davie.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many things that go with that sentence.
Right.
Davie, Treetop Park. These are all just very usual hetero, attended kind of events. So when I saw this in your story, I was like, wow, I was blown away by that. The Dolphins love us. The Dolphins are a fantastic organization that have come through for us in many ways, but I do love when they do like the Pride Night or something like that, because it does make us feel seen.
Yeah.
When the Marlins have their Pride Night, I love that as well. And what was the other one? To Visit Lauderdale. I heard that their new campaign is hot and spicy and sexy
amazing.
and
inclusive. It's inclusive and fun. And so often we kind of get bogged down in the message, which is important, but this is, it's fun. And by the way, shout out to London Adore and Jasmine Price Lords. I forget the third one. They did a drag show outside of Dolphin Stadium.
Nice.
On Sunday at the tailgate party. Wilton Creamery showed up. New York Grilled Cheese showed up. It was a really great representation. So yeah, you're right. They do this every year for us, and most of the sports teams do. But it's still important and impactful to remember.
Well, something beyond the Pride Night. So a lot of people not from South Florida may not realize, but the Dolphins have an initiative called Dolphins Unites, which sponsors all the local prides, all the LGBT resources. Visit Lauderdale has one of the largest LGBTQ marketing budgets of any Convention Visitors Bureau in the world. The fact that they're just combining that the regular marketing is even more amazing. But again, Treetops Park, I'm like,
right? we go back to Davie.
Halloween is gay Christmas, but we're talking about Davie in the woods.
Okay.
And they're still embracing.
Folks at home, we have to explain to the folks at home what Davie is like. When you think of Davie in South Florida, you think of like ranches, you think of like rodeos.
They have a rodeo.
Stuff like that, good old boys. Like, you don't really think of LGBT. You don't even think of brown people either. Like, it really is just that kind of a place. But then to see it open up like this is just wonderful.
I mean, Halloween is gay Christmas, but.
I was there last year with my cousin, and I was very popular.
I bet you were, girl. I've been out with you. I know how popular you are.
Wait, in Davie or in
In
Treetop Park?
Davie. It wasn't Pride Night, so I was very popular. It was the ghouls liked me, so it was good. I feel safe there. I think it's great.
Great.
You go ghouls.
Yeah, you go ghouls.
All right. Next, we queer up education. LGBTQ+ university students across the country walk out over religious discrimination. Within the last 2 years, religious school students have made headlines pushing back against university policies attacking LGBTQ+ students or staff. Queer students like Veronica Bonifacio Panales, who have been protesting religious university policies they call discriminatory and homophobic, often get asked the same question: why would you go to a Christian school if you're LGBTQ+? Well, for many of these students, the fight at religiously affiliated universities is part of a significant push from within Christianity towards more inclusive beliefs to, as activists at Seattle Pacific University put it, quote, deconstruct harmful theologies on sexuality, gender, and queerness, end quote. And as they've reminded their thousands of social media followers, you can be queer and Christian. They staged a month-long sit-in at Seattle Pacific University, a private school associated with the Free Methodist Church, against a policy that forbids hiring LGBTQ+ people. They've called on Baylor University, which affirms marriage between a man and a woman as the, quote, biblical norm, to officially recognize an LGBTQ+ student advocacy group. At Denver University, students will be walking out in solidarity with queer students at BYU. At Western Illinois University, Casa Latina Cultural Center will be participating as a way to urge institutions to implement Title IX to these religious universities who are exempt. We are sitting in living proof that churches can be queer accepting. We're broadcasting from Sunshine Cathedral, massive queer church, community resources here. And a lot of queer people are Christian. They're not mutually exclusive. You know, Jesus said, love thy neighbor. You know, your identity and your personal beliefs don't have to conflict. And these students get it in a way some of the older members of these organizations don't. And they're pushing that they want to be queer and Christian in an open, inviting way. And I absolutely love this.
Is it awful that when I was reading the story, my first thought was, why don't you just go somewhere else? Why don't you just have, take your educational money and take it to a school that actually sees you and supports you? Is that bad to say?
Yeah, because it's like anything. Like, why wouldn't you stay and fight for where you are? It's the same thing we're hearing now. Like, right? Like, if the state is going to be pushing queerness and LGBTQ issues out of schools, why would you stay in Florida, right? How many people are thinking of just simply giving up? But this is our home.
Yes.
This is where we live. And for many people, their religion is
their home.
Right? It's where they grew up and it's where they want to stay and they want to fight for it because you know what? At the end of the day, it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, and it's also cultural and familial. So I get it, and kudos to the people who are standing up and fighting. But I would want to go somewhere where I feel I'm accepted, right?
No,
and where my peers are,
of course,
and where there are other LGBTQ plus people.
We need to start an LGBTQ plus Ivy League school that only accepts LGBTQ+.
There we go.
Then trust me, people would be super pissed and things would change just a little.
We know it's funny you say it too, but because here in South Florida, there are very tight-knit religious communities, especially with the folks from the Caribbean, the Latin American communities. It's very religious, and that means a lot. If you can get your church to change their views, that goes a long way to helping your family members and your community accept you. And sometimes, you just want to move, and sometimes you want to be with your family and your community because they're your friends, and they don't understand that who you are is something that can be okay in the family of religion. And it's a tough fight. Props to all these students fighting to make a difference. It's the new Stonewall. Really, is these youth fighting for acceptance.
We owe our youth so much.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of tired of the fight of change from within. And God bless them. I get it. God bless them. I really do. I hope that their walkouts make an impact, and I hope that they do make changes at their universities. But at some point, you just have to admit that the gays have been abused by religion for centuries, if not millennia, and in America, they're able to use their religion as a constitutionally protected bludgeon against any group they don't like. And at some point, and I reached this a long time ago, you just kind of say, screw it. You're not better than us. We will at least be equal to you.
And it's great to have inclusive churches like Unity on the Bay.
Yeah.
That's a place I've gone to for many years.
Yeah, you could be queer and spiritual.
Yeah, exactly.
But queer and Christian seems to be just a little bit harder.
Yeah, okay, I agree. All right, it's time to queer up the politics on that note. HRC launches ads warning LGBTQ+ that the GOP will attack more rights.
For extremist politicians, outlawing abortion, even in cases of rape and incest, is just the beginning. They're planning to take away our rights and freedoms, roll back same-sex marriage, make it harder to vote. They threaten our progress, our future. Voting is how we fight back. Electing Warnock and Abrams can secure our progress and our future. Vote on or before November 8th. Human Rights Campaign Equality Votes is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The Human Rights Campaign, HRC, the nation's largest LGBTQ+ advocacy organization, announced on Monday the launch of six-figure ad buys in 4 battleground states to mobilize voters ahead of next month's midterm elections. Ads sponsored by the group will run on television stations and streaming platforms, which include Roku and Hulu throughout Nevada, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Georgia, where the outcome of close contests for Senate seats could determine which party holds the majority next year. The HRC ad campaigns are aimed at engaging upwards of 750,000 voters who back progressive leaders, but don't habitually vote in midterm elections. That's what the group said in the news release announcing the ad buys. The HRC campaign encourages voters to cast a ballot in November for the following: Abrams and Warnock in Georgia, Mandela Barnes, a Democrat running for Senate, and Governor Tony Evers in Wisconsin, Sherry Beasley, a Democrat running for the Senate in North Carolina, and Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, and Governor Steve Sisolak in Nevada. Wow, that's some pretty amazing stuff HRC is doing. They're always on the cutting edge of stuff, right?
Kudos to them. And we need those, they said it was 6-figure buys, right, for these ads. That's what we need. Like, I'm sick of seeing Ron DeSantis's, commercials everywhere, or his crying wife on the couch. I'm so sick of them, or them blaming Val Demings for the opioid crisis. You know what I mean? I mean, these campaigns are completely ridiculous, but they've got the funds behind them to play them everywhere. Like, I wonder, the algorithms are so funny. Sometimes I'm like on Facebook and I'm like, really? You're targeting me? How am I getting this with all the homos on my thread?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think the most disheartening part of this story was what's not in it. Florida. We're not Nevada. We're not Georgia. We're not North Carolina. We're not Wisconsin. Right. And I think that's kind of a nod to a couple of things that we're starting to see is the polls just aren't moving. We've gotten close in Florida, but it's just not coming. It's those micro pockets could still push us over the edge, but the early numbers also on return ballots aren't looking good. Now we'll have a better picture once early voting starts next week, but it's just getting
interesting to that point is that it's almost like the country's written us off as a red state.
Yeah.
And yet you look at most of our elections, right? Alex Sink lost the governor's race by 1 point. Charlie Crist by 1 point. Gillum lost by 32,000 votes, right? These are always 1% races, but the money that it takes to invest is unfortunately far more than $750,000 divided by 4, right? If it were divided by 5, it'd be even less. It really takes every single one of us making sure that we are talking to our neighbors and our friends and turning out the vote, because 1% doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a huge lift.
Yeah. And the thing about Florida, though, is we are a purple state, but it's extremely localized. From one county to the next, the elections can be vastly different. There aren't quite as many of these swing districts. Representative Carlos, Team Carlos, he is now in one of those. But with this redistricting, it's so hard to tell how elections are going to go that it's difficult to tell how much money would be beneficial and what would be just throwing it away.
And they're smart at looking down the road, because even if Carlos wins this race, they've drawn it in such a way, they'll come back 2 years from now and they'll try and pick it up then, right? They are thinking more than just the election in front of us. They are thinking 10 years, 20, 30 years down the road, right?
And also, Florida's expensive. We've got major markets. We've got Miami, Tampa, Orlando, to a lesser extent, Jacksonville, whereas a state like Wisconsin has Milwaukee and then a bunch of small, cheap markets where you can buy television. Georgia has Atlanta, but then a bunch of small places where you can buy ad time. So it's just cheaper to be in these states as well.
That's true.
Well, next, we are proud of our partnership, our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church. It's right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. Eastern every week, with more than 30,000 people tuning in.
I'm Effie Passero from American Idol, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, That is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show. Is our community important to you?
You know it is, so help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share the news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you're a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your friends and family.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, FayWhat, and on behalf of these incredible reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Todd Delmay, John Hayden, David Hopkins, and Franchesca D'Amore, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night, everyone.